Hi, I'm Bruce Lawson, and my talk is called How to Make Loveliness, because that is what HTML stands for. HTML is an acronym of How to Make Loveliness, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Put your hands up if you are a web developer or ever produce HTML. Good. Put your hands up if you are an SEO or a management-y person. Cool. Excellent. That's the guy with the money, so see him for drinks later. Yeah, so this is an HTML treasure hunt. There are so many things in HTML that a lot of people don't know. And I'm going to tell you about some of them to persuade you to relearn HTML. I am one of the editors at W3C for the HTML 5.3 specification. I invented the picture element, is my claim to fame. Hi. I was part of the team that wrote the British standard for commissioning accessible websites, the snappily named BS 8878. I co-wrote Introducing HTML5, the first book about HTML5, and I co-wrote another snappily named Web Accessibility book. So you can say, I'm going to say it to you now, we're all friends. Hi, my name's Bruce, and I'm an HTML-alcoholic. Actually, this is a brand of men's clothing in Tokyo. So when I was in Tokyo, I went to the department store and lay down and posed for photographs. But the Japanese security guards were too polite to tell me to fuck off. So there's the picture. So HTML is full of treasure, but you have to dig for it. Once you dig for it, you will have wonderful golden jewels. Hi, I'm really not worth photographing. I'm really ugly. So let's look at the treasure map. If you use HTML properly, your sites will be more performant. We all know that every few milliseconds that your sites are slowed down, you lose money. Your sites will be more accessible. That is, people with disabilities can use them. And I have skin in the game. 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, so my fingers don't work so well, so I always use the keyboard rather than the mouse. Your sites will be more robust. They will not fail if JavaScript is not working or the network is slow. There will be less code to write, because developers, our job is to write less code. We're not paid by the line, we're paid to solve a problem. And if you can solve the problem writing less code, you have less code to test. And if you have less code to test, you get to go to the pub earlier. And that is why we're developers, right? Or if you don't drink, you can play Call of Duty, you can even speak to your children, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatevs. So let's look at the map. I'm going to suggest to you that you use HTML properly, and I'll show you how. Write more HTML, write less JavaScript. Use CSS properly. Use CSS, not CSS in JS. And my old friend Malcolm William Lee, who's the inventor of CSS, will talk about CSS tomorrow. Be there. And this is Bruce's mantra, built-in beats bolt-on, bigly. If you use HTML properly, you're getting built-in shit that's already in the browsers in heavily optimized C++. It's better to use that than try and mimic it and build it yourself. Bigly. Built-in beats bolt-on. I'm not scared of frameworks, okay? I was in Bucharest in Romania last year, and I saw this graffiti saying, React, run! But I didn't run. I'm not scared of React. Angular holds no terrors for me. Ember is a bit frightening, but recently I was working with Wix on a library of CSS for React components called Stylable. It's BDSM licensed. You, you might want to look. But I'm not scared of those things. But I know they are only tools. They are big, well-known tools, but they're only tools. So if you want to use React Angular Bootstrap Hubpack.js in your next project, great, good, go for it. Be aware that in 6 months everyone will laugh at you and call you granddad or grandma. But whatever framework you use, make sure the HTML it actually sends to the user's browser is good, semantic HTML. Who likes furniture? I love furniture. I'm stockpiling it so I can burn it in the winter after Brexit to make fuel. This book, published in the 70s, since its first publication in 1970, the technique of furniture making has established itself as the Bible for all woodworkers. In the introduction, it says, any textbook concerned with the techniques of furniture making must deal primarily with the basic handicrafts. All a machine can ever do is translate the essential hand operations into rotary movements. What the guy's saying is, yep, a lot of furniture is made by machines, but you need to understand the basic, because the machine, React, Angular, whatever, is only as good as your knowledge of the basic raw materials that you're working with. So he says, anyone who's only been shown how to force a piece of wood against a mechanized saw will learn very little. If he has had to saw that piece of wood by hand, he'll be more likely to know that much more about it. He will have greater respect for it and will understand in greater depth the problems that will have to be faced in its manipulation. So this book, The Techniques of Furniture Making, the first 100 pages is not about machines or tools at all. It's about wood. There are tables of the comparative movement in various humidity levels of different kinds of wood. There are diagrams of the strongest cuts. There are pictures of the grain, because if you want to make good furniture, it doesn't matter how well you know the machines. The important thing is how well you know the basic raw materials, the wood. There's another book, The Japanese Woodworking Tools, by Mr. Toshio Odate, and he writes in it, the Japanese word shakunin is defined by Japanese and English dictionaries as craftsman or artisan, but such a literal description does not fully express the deeper meaning. Shakunin means not only having technical skill, but also implies an attitude and social consciousness, a social obligation to work his best for the general welfare of the people, an obligation both material and spiritual. And I suggest to you that if you're making websites, you should be a shakunin and not just a machine operator. You've probably heard of this guy, Tim Berners-Lee. I call him Sir Uncle Timbo because I'm English and so is he. But of course, he invented the web. And he said famously at the opening of the 2012 Olympics in London, this is for everyone. And it was. This is the first ever website that Tim Berners-Lee made. And here it is, a video of it in the latest version of Chrome. You can see, as I squish it down, it's perfectly responsive. As I tab through the links, I can just use the keyboard to tab through them. Maybe you can't see it on the video, but I get a nice focus ring to show me where I am as I'm tabbing. If I click enter or space, I follow the link. The web was totally responsive, completely accessible, out of the box, but we broke it. We broke it because we decided everybody has a big monitor, so websites should be fixed width. And then the iPhone came out, and we thought, ah, shit. We broke it because we chose bad colors, bad contrast, bad fonts that if you're 22 with perfect eyesight, you can read. But I'm looking here, and there's plenty of people wearing glasses like me. We broke it because we decided the web should have pixel-perfect layout and look the same on every browser. We broke it because we had videos and didn't put captions on them. We broke it because we forgot that many people use the keyboard to navigate a website. If you are a developer, turn off keyboard shortcuts in VS Code or Sublime. See how well you get on programming. And then think, do I turn off keyboard accessibility for my web visitors? We broke it because we removed the nice focus ring around the currently focused link. You can do this with one line of CSS if you are evil, but I will track you down, my friends. We broke it fundamentally because we got obsessed with tooling and forgot about the raw materials, the wood. The wood of the web is JavaScript, HTML5, and CSS3. And they get along fine. This is Brendan Eich, who invented JavaScript. That's Malcolm William Lee, who invented CSS. And there's me. I didn't invent HTML, but Tim Berners-Lee was unavailable. And look, we're having a beer. We're getting on fine. Nobody had a fight until about the 5th pint. These things are not competing. These things work together in harmony. But we forget that. This is a Medium post that came out last year. I've photoshopped out the name of the author, because I'm not in for naming and shaming. It's not his or her fault. This indicates a general malaise, a general sickness in our industry. Sorry, I need some vodka. 10 things to learn. It's actually pastis. 10 things to learn for becoming a solid full-stack JavaScript developer. The top 4 have a fundamental understanding of JavaScript. Yeah, that makes sense. Of course, you can't do full-stack JavaScript development or full-stack any web development, for that matter, without learning JavaScript itself. Yeah, well, I've seen many people who only learnt jQuery, and they are still around. Then learn a front-end framework, Ember, Angular, React. Then learn Bootstrap 4. And then HTML, CSS, kind of as an afterthought. But as for HTML, there's not much to learn right away, and you can kind of learn as you go. Knowing the difference between span and div, this will save you a huge amount of headache when fiddling with your CSS code. Not writing CSS, but fiddling. And this kind of dismissive attitude means a lot of websites that come out now are, and I'm going to use a computer science term, shit. So let's look at the wood of the web. HTML is declarative. You say, give me a button, and lo, hey presto, there is a button. You don't have to tell the browser how to make it. You just tell it, I want a button, and there you are. And out of the box, this can be focused with the tab key. Out of the box, it can be activated with the spacebar or the enter key. Out of the box, it will submit without JavaScript. It just works. HTML is fault-tolerant. I put this in red because you should never do it. This is the blink element that Netscape invented. You can make it flash the words, oh my God, you're having a seizure, if you want to. But in a browser that doesn't know the blink element, and Internet Explorer did never implement the blink element, you will see the text in the middle. By default, HTML, if it doesn't understand a tag, it just shows the content. So nobody ever misses the content, but this is by design. So therefore, it's backwards compatible. When we invented the video element, a browser that understood the video would show the video. A browser that doesn't understand the video tag will show the content, and it will say, I can't play it, download it, and look at it on your operating system video player. Everybody gets the content. Some people get a lesser experience, Other people with a modern browser get a better experience. But everybody gets the content because HTML is out of the box, backwards compatible. So therefore, when I first proposed the picture element, I paved that cowpath from the video element. So here, I'm saying, if you understand the WebP format, which is about 25 to 35% smaller than JPEG for the same quality, show the WebP. If you don't understand the WebP format, show the JPEG. Nobody gets a worse experience. And if you don't understand the picture element at all, it falls back to the main content. Nobody loses out. People with a modern browser get a better experience. This is not magic. This is by design, out of the box in HTML. I showed you the first ever web page running in a modern browser. This is the first ever browser that Sir Timbo wrote running my HTML5 website. It's not the most attractive of UIs. Okay, it's not styled because the first browser doesn't understand CSS, but you can browse it, you can tab through the links, you can read it, you can follow the links, you get the content. So the oldest website works in modern browsers. The first ever browser can read a modern website if it's using good semantic HTML. And HTML is interoperable. Here, I've misnested this content. I'm opening a B, I'm opening an I, and I'm closing the B before the I. In the old days, Internet Explorer and Safari would make one document object model. Firefox, Chrome, and Opera would make a different one. This was a pain in the arse if you were writing scripts that traverse the DOM. But no browser was wrong, because HTML4 only ever told browsers what to do with good markup, with valid markup. Now, obviously, everybody in this room never writes code with errors, right? But there's a loser in your team who probably does, yeah? But with HTML5, every conceivable, every possible combination of misnested tags will always produce the same DOM. This is called the HTML5 parsing algorithm. And it's like an HTML5 ninja. It's super powerful, but nobody ever notices it. But that's what gives us the opportunity for interoperable HTML across all browsers on the market today. JavaScript, on the other hand, is not declarative. It's imperative. You don't say, give me a button. You must tell the browser how to do it. So if, for example, it's not fault-tolerant. And this defies Sir Uncle Timbo's principle of the least power. When he made the web, he said, the choice of language is a common design choice. The low-power end of the scale is typically simpler to design, implement, and use. So the purpose of the web is use the tool that is the least powerful tool to accomplish the thing that you want to do. In other words, if you can do it in HTML or do it in CSS, don't do it in JavaScript, because HTML and CSS are fault-tolerant and backwards compatible, and JS isn't. If you can't do it in HTML or CSS, then yes, of course, use JavaScript, but obey the principle of the least power. Use the right tool for the right job. 13 million requests for JavaScript will time out every month, according to BuzzFeed. 1% of requests for JavaScript on BuzzFeed time out. That's 13 million requests per month. This is you going into the Paris metro and the JavaScript doesn't load. This is you using somebody else's weird Wi-Fi that blocks some scripts. This is not people in sub-Saharan Africa on an ancient Android phone. This is us every day. My friend Stuart Langridge has a website called Everybody Has JavaScript, right? And as you scroll down, you will see all of the possibilities that mean you in the West with a smartphone and a really cool laptop on a fast broadband may encounter JavaScript timing out. And therefore, if your sites rely on JavaScript, they will not work. Warning, bees ahead. Yes, this is a crappy joke about freebies, because HTML gives us loads of freebies. It gives us lots of things free in the browser. Here's a demo, a really simple demo. We've all seen this. We've probably coded it. A checkbox saying, check if you don't want not to opt out of cancelling us, stopping you sending spam forever. They look identical, apart from, I guess, a little bit of white space there. The first one, because I have MS and poor motor control, if I'm sitting on a bumpy aeroplane or a bumpy train with a little phone trying to click in that checkbox, it's really hard. And here I am trying it. Look, I'm trying to click, and it doesn't do anything. I have to have the marksmanship to get there. The second one, I click in the label, and it fills it in. It's a huge usability win, not just for screen reader users, but for elderly people, people like me with poor motor control. You sitting on a train, bumping around. And the simple way that's achieved is by using correct HTML. The first one is an input, and then just the label text is in a span. And span, by default, means nothing. The second one, I've just put the label text in a label element that wraps the input, and it just works. I don't think there's any more code there. I don't think it's harder to write. And it's a huge usability win for those who need it, and it doesn't affect anybody who doesn't need it. It's a win-win. Use it. Because the way the web works is you have your website. That makes a document object model in the browser, but it also makes an accessibility tree. The accessibility tree maps the thing on your website to things in the operating system. You have a checkbox, it will map it to an OS-level checkbox, which can get communicated to assistive technology, a keyboard, a screen reader, a screen magnifier, which is sent to the user. But when I used a span, because span doesn't map to a label in the OS, that information is not given to the user, is not given to the assistive technology, so I can't use my keyboard to fill it in. Simple. A button. We talked about a button earlier. If you choose to use a div of class equals button, go for it. But remember, you must set the ARIA role in JavaScript or HTML. You must also remember to manage focusability, because a div is not focusable with the keyboard. And you must also remember to listen for both the spacebar, the enter key, any touches. You have to do this in your code, or you can just choose to use an HTML button. What's the simpler? We've all seen this. This is every website in the world, pretty much. A header, a nav on the side, some main content, some articles. Those could be blog posts, those could be YouTube videos, those could be Amazon books, doesn't matter, and then a footer. In HTML4, we marked these up with div because we didn't have any semantic. But div element has no meaning at all. This is in the spec. Authors are strongly encouraged to view the div element as an element of last resort for when no other element is suitable. But now, in HTML5, we have these: header, nav, main, footer. So you should never use a div for these because you have a semantic for it. And this is really helpful. If you use nav rather than div, you are still using 1, 2, 3 bytes, but you are giving enormous help to people who need it. In a survey of screen reader users last year, how often do you navigate by landmarks regions? That's header, footer, nav. 25% said whenever they exist. 18% said often. 28% said sometimes. Only 13% said never. So if you use nav, header, footer, main, you are making life easier for 70% of screen reader users with no cost to you and no impact upon people who don't use the assistive technologies. This is really powerful. This is my friend Leonie Watson. She was a web designer, web developer, and she went blind in her late 20s. And now she and I often collaborate on conferences and projects. This is Leonie using my website on her screen reader. Hopefully you'll hear the sound.
Lawson's personal site, Mozilla Firefox. Bruce Lawson's personal site, 27 regions, 21 headings and 187 links. Bruce Lawson's personal site, visited heading level 1 link, Bruce Lawson's.
So I'm going to stop that there. First thing you learn when you've got a screen reader is the key to stop it talking. There is only so much talking in your ear you can cope with during the course of the day, and in most screen readers the control key is what will stop it talking. What you heard then was the screen reader do several things as the page loaded. It told me the title of the site, Bruce Lawson's personal site. That's the bit that's contained in the title element inside the header elements on the page. These days, I understand in the visual appearance of browsers, that's not a very visible piece of information. Back in the day when I last saw a browser, the title was very often displayed quite prominently at the top of the browser window. But for a screen reader user, it's still the first piece of information that you encounter on the page, and it's incredibly useful because it's often the first guarantee or first confirmation that you've got that you've ended up on the page that you intended to reach. You might also have heard that the screen reader then just gave a quick summary of some of the key elements on the page. It told me there were some regions on the page and some headings. So already that's given me a bit of a clue as to how I can start exploring this page. One thing you can't do as a blind screen reader user is take in the page at a whole glance. When most sighted people look at a page, they'll kind of notice, yep, I can see the header and the footer and maybe the navigation off to one side and a content area somewhere. But of course, you can't do that sort of holistic assessment of a page as a screen reader user. What you can do, though, is use the regions of a page. So in JAWS, if I hit the R key, we'll start to explore the page in regional chunks like this.
Navigation region.
So it tells me there's a navigation region on the page, and if I hit that key again,
Search this site, clickable, search region.
I've got a search region on the page.
Main region.
A main region, which tells me, all things being equal, that's the main content area of the page.
Heading level 2 link reading list, banner.
And then I come to...
This was all made possible simply by using the HTML header, footer, nav, and main. If you're using a div for those, you're just making her life harder. Why do that? You're all nice people, I can see it. Mostly. Additionally, people like me have been boring audiences for 15 years, telling them that if you use proper markup, you're going to get better SEO. Google confirmed this, and last month, for the first time, they put some numbers on it. Google said, when you add markup to your content, you help search engines understand the different components of a page, which can enhance the user experience and get you more traffic. Eventbrite used structured event data and saw a 100% increase in year-on-year growth in traffic from search. Job Rapido saw a 115% increase in organic traffic, 270% increase in new user registrations. Rakuten saw a 2.7 increase in traffic from search engines and a 1.5 increase in session duration. Show me your hands if your boss ever said, make me less visible on Google. How was this achieved? By using HTML5 microdata. This is what I do on my site. My site is a WordPress site, so this is in the single.php template. I added this once, and now every post I write just automatically becomes like this. Hi, you've missed all the good bits. So each blog post I write is wrapped in an article. And I say the item type is schema.org blog posting. Schema.org is a consortium of Google, Bing, Yandex, the biggest search engine in Russia, and Baidu, the biggest search engine in China. And they've got together and made schema.org. There is a vocabulary, a schema, for almost every type of content you can imagine. Medical equipment, football matches, movies, books, blog posts, recipes. So I'm just telling the search engines, this is a blog posting, this bit is the headline, this bit is the date created, this bit is the pub date and also the date published. And that gets me better SEO, just by doing that. It also means that my site works better in Apple's Watch. When they released a new version last year, they showed us. They know how to display things nicely if you wrap stuff in an article tag. Then it will automatically be mapped to a nice display. Apple might do many things badly, but what they do well is making things look nice. And they said, you know, if you use item prop title, item prop author, subheading, pub date, just like you saw on my site, these things will get default stylings on the iWatch. If you use figure, image, and fit caption, these things will get attractive stylings on the Apple Watch so the user doesn't have to zoom in or out. If you use input type equals tel, the user gets a telephone keypad. If you use input type equals date, the user gets this attractive date picker out of the box because I used the semantic HTML. Now I know what you're thinking, my chic French friends. You're looking at me thinking, okay, Bruce, you are neither glamorous nor beautiful. This is true. Okay, these are from my fashion blog. What's Bruce wearing today? Tumblr. You're welcome to have a look if you need sartorial inspiration. But yes, I'm not glamorous or beautiful. So how did I get to own an Apple Watch? And how did I get early access to the beta so I could mark up my site? I didn't. I wrote that markup 7 years ago before I even knew an Apple Watch existed. But because I was using semantic HTML, using the right tools for the right job, just when a new device came on board that I'd never even dreamed of, it just worked because I future-proofed it by using semantics rather than just wrapping everything in div. Accessibility is a high part of usability. People like me have been boring audiences across the world saying, if you make things that work well for people with disabilities, it works better for everybody. And some people proved this from the University of Switzerland. It's near Germany, apparently. High conformance with web accessibility guidelines may provide benefits to users without disabilities. They say may because they're academics. But they did a study. They took 61 people without disabilities and got them using 3 websites, one with very good accessibility, one with medium, one with low. So these people did not have disabilities, and they were using websites with various levels of accessibility. A high level of web accessibility led to a better performance, i.e. task completion time and task completion rate, than low or very low accessibility. High web accessibility improved user ratings, i.e. usability, aesthetics, workload, and trustworthiness compared to very low accessibility. If you make your websites accessible by using semantic HTML, they'll be better, more usable for all users, plus your SEO benefit, plus your robustness. This is my friend Jamie Knight, who's a senior researcher for the BBC, and he's quite seriously autistic. Quite often he can't speak. He said, no one comes to our sites disabled. They come with impairments. We disable them by not doing the job properly. In short, remember, where the fluffy bunny of good HTML goes, the Tweety bird of accessibility follows along. It's a lovely photograph, isn't it? They were delicious, by the way. So Uncle Timbo said, the web is for everyone, and collectively we hold the power to change it. It won't be easy, but if we dream a little and work a lot, we can get the web we want. So what can you do? You can learn the semantics of HTML. There are only 120 elements, 120 words in HTML. This is not a lot. Most 2-year-olds can say 100 words. By the time your toddler is 2.5, she will know close to 300 words. I'm asking you to learn 120. I want you to be better than this. It was delicious, by the way. So learn the semantics. Run automated tests and go for the low-hanging fruit, e.g. color contrast. WebAIM did a study of the top 1 million home pages. 98% of those million have simple accessibility errors. Low contrast. You can just run this through a contrast checker, correct it. It's trivial. Missing alt text, empty links, missing document language. Just on your HTML tag, just put HTML lang equals FR or lang equals EN, and that helps hundreds of thousands of people. I did it myself. I checked on my own website using Ada Rose Cannon's contrast widget. It's a bookmarklet. It goes on the current page and highlights where the contrast is wrong, so you can fix it in the Chrome tools. Use HTML and CSS wherever possible rather than JavaScript. Make sites that work without JavaScript and then enhance with JS. Choose your libraries carefully. If you use React, consider using 10on UI's library. They tested every component with people with disabilities. They guarantee it works. On the other hand, if you use react-bootstrap, they have a navigation component, and they're just using div class equals nav. They could use nav and make it a lot easier, but they choose not to, so don't use that library. And don't do this. Don't smother your website with lots of JavaScript. The amount of JavaScript we've been sending has been going up now. The median mobile website has 384K of JavaScript. Alex Russell, who's the guy who invented web components and service worker, said, "We cannot continue to use as much JavaScript as is now normal and expect the web to flourish. We need to confront the developer experience bait and switch. Tools that cost the poorest users to pay wealthy developers a bunk. Because making your life easier by using React instead of writing HTML, if that's appropriate, by making your life easier, you are making other people's lives harder." For example, in Germany, to afford 500 megabytes of mobile data a month, you must work 1 hour on average wage. In the US, you must work 6 hours. In Nigeria, you must work 28 hours, and in Brazil, you must work 34 hours to afford 500 megabytes a month. So if you're sending down shitloads of JavaScript or massive images, you are making people work harder. And that's bad manners, because you want to go to the pub. In Nigeria, the cost needed to watch 2 minutes of online video a day can cost more than sending your child to school. I know your 2-minute hero video of your exciting office and your exciting product is marvelous, but I guarantee you educating a child is more marvelous. I'm being nagged to hurry. In the world, there are 1.1 billion people like us with high-speed internet. There are 3.2 billion internet users. There are 7 billion people within mobile coverage. That is 4 billion people yet to come online. Many of them, of course, are in China or India because they're the biggest countries. 51 million of them are in the States. But by 2100, by the year 2100, 50% of the world will live in these 10 countries. Only one of which is what we call a developed country. The other people will live in these nations. The population of the West is declining. The population of Asia will go from 4 billion to 5 billion. The population of Africa will go from 1 billion to 5 billion by 2100, when the world population will peak at 11 billion. Your next customers are coming from these places, and you need to make sure that your websites are accessible to those people. Developing countries are home to 94% of the global offline population. The World Bank said making the internet universally accessible and affordable should be a global priority. Because the internet is not only for putting lol on your friend's cat video, or telling a stranger to fuck off because you dislike their political opinions. There are tens of millions of people for whom seeing a doctor is miles and miles to walk in sub-Saharan Africa. But with an ancient Android phone, an internet connection, they can download a PDF of where there is no doctor, translated into their local language, and this is first-line medical care. It's proven that the amount of women who die during childbirth decreases in places where they have internet access. There are tens, perhaps hundreds of millions of people in Africa, Bangladesh, Nepal, for whom school textbooks are an unimaginably expensive luxury. But with an old Android phone and an internet connection, they can go to worldreader.org and download tens of thousands of school textbooks for free in their own language. There are people in horrible regimes in the world where having the wrong religion or the wrong political opinions or falling in love with the wrong gender can get you put into prison or murdered. And these people depend upon access to the web to see the outside world. As an Egyptian activist said in the Arab Spring, if you want to liberate a country, give them the internet. Okay, this is hippie bullshit. I'm wearing a hippie bullshit shirt. So here's some numbers. McKinsey Institute said an increase in internet maturity, similar to the one experienced in mature countries over the last 5 years, creates an increase in real gross domestic product per person of $500 per person in 5 years. It took the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century 50 years to produce the same result. We are all sitting in a beautiful place doing a fun job that takes us around because we have taken advantage of the new Industrial Revolution. And you are the new Thomas Telfords, the new Edisons. You are the people who are carrying this on. We need to pay it forward and give it to the next 4 billion people who depend upon it. So be a superhero. All you need to do to be a superhero, to future-proof your sites, to make them accessible to devices you cannot dream of, is write good HTML, good CSS, and keep it simple. Because the internet is not computers. The internet is not clouds. It's not a series of tubes. It is these women in Africa. It is this blind guy in Toronto. It is these ladies I met on a bus in Bangladesh. It is this elderly lady in a wheelchair in Taipei. It is this farmer and his granddaughter I stayed with in Cambodia. It is this guy on the metro in New York. It is for everyone. Thank you for your time.